me yesterday, wondering about today's session. Go ahead, Dean.
Well, thanks, Wally. I think most of the guys here probably know me already, but I'm back in Calgary. I'm finishing my PhD this year, sociology of sport. I'm looking at my experiences as a coach from the lens of a North American working in Europe and Asia. So the title of my thesis at this point is The Nomad Coach. And if you've been in coaching for any length of time, most of us are nomads in one way or the other, moving from place to place, contract to contract. So I'm looking at it through obviously whatever preconceptions I bring to the table, but also then working in a different culture with a different language sometimes, or that sort of thing. So I find it interesting anyway to see these differences. I texted Wally just like because I have an hour this morning that was free and clear of calls, and I asked him the question. I wonder what the guys on the call would say about their perceptions of leadership gaps or failings or areas in which need to be improved around the leadership that comes top down. So kind of touching on what Wally just said there about the NSOs, NGBs, and not just national bodies, but it could be regional or local bodies. And what with all the experience on the call, what gaps do you guys see from the elements of leadership coming down to us? And I really like the what Wally just said there about the coach education. It's put out there by these national governing bodies and not necessarily foisted upon us, but we have to take it if we want to coach. And then after that, then what? Like Wally says, is it strictly a matter of checking the boxes and then, all right, Hal, you've got the highest level of coaching. Good. We'll see you in the next lifetime, right? So that was my question. It's, more so than any real stories around it for myself. I mean, we've all got many. I was just curious to hear your guys's perceptions from wherever you've been and wherever you are now, to maybe help identify some of these potential failings. And then let's identify these gaps, because I'm just going to take a few, and I'm just going to try to look to, it's not necessarily be a complaint session, but it's an identification session, so that maybe we can start to see if there's any themes or commonalities across all of our experiences, and that's how we start to identify possible solutions. So Hal, I don't know how to work this Skype, but I see somebody's got their hand up. So if I'm back in my classroom, I'm thinking that the student has a question, and we're all students here. So Hal, whatever, I'll shut up and start us off.
Hi, good morning. I think you're right on. I think we all know the issues, and they start at the top. I went to the first USA Hockey. They now call it Level 5. We used to call it Masters. It was in 1986. It was 4 days at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, and it was fabulous. So much learning and so much going on. And then coach education was not required until the early 90s, I think, I don't know, I can't remember, 92 or 93, because they discovered how much money they could make by requiring the coaching. And this is the same whole thing. It's all about, this is about money. I'm in the money business. And and so is sport. I mean, I think I'm in Minnesota. I think it's almost a $2 billion industry in Minnesota now, all in. And as Michael was talking, we run elite programs, high performance programs, tier 1, tier 2. This is all off season. and a Pee-wee could pay, off-season could pay between $15,000 and $20,000 a year now in Minnesota, which is absurd. 1 out of 1,000 high school players in Minnesota might have a chance to play professional hockey somewhere, not necessarily the National Hockey League. 1 out of 1,000. On that one, no, that's actually those are NCAA statistics. 1 out of 1,000 high school kids in the United States will play beyond college, and about 5% or less, I think the number's closer to 3, will even have a chance to play some level of college hockey, not necessarily Division I. So that's where you get to pay $40,000 a year to play hockey and go to school. And so I don't, I think it's a culture thing, like, like Wally and Tom suggested. Americans are hyper competitive. We have a whole generation of people who are extraordinarily wealthy, and not totally because they deserved it. It's just that they got it. Living in the United States for sure, and they can't think of any better way that. They buy junior teams for a huge amount of money so their kid can play on it. I look at right now, we've got some situations going on here in Minnesota, one in our own program, and there are more lawyers involved than there are players involved. And USA Hockey is scared to death. They have a case in South Dakota on a locker boxing incident that happened 2 years ago, and they're going to settle it. They're in mediation, I understand, and it's going to cost USA Hockey $10 million. They have 3 cases last year down in the southern states at the Bantam level, coach abuse of players. 3 cases, that the settlements are somewhere between $5 and $6 million to the families. Now so you create an organization and you put all these people supposedly through your coaching and your due diligence, and and this is the kind of stuff that happens. So USA Hockey, and you guys had your problems in Canada too, and not just in hockey, and we've had it not just in hockey in the United States. It's run amok, and I think it's really sad. And again, it's a little different out east and out west and wherever, but here in Minnesota, it's like we have 50,000 hockey players in Minnesota, and on average, 150 of them end up playing Division I hockey in any year. So I don't know. I think it's parent driven. I think it's ego driven. It's money driven, and the kids are just kind of fodder in this whole game. So that's my 2 cents on it, and I'm getting pretty worn out by it too. So.
And Mike, Wally.
I put my hand up because as you're talking about court cases. Tim, remember when you drove me up to scout, was it a 10-year-old boy? His parents were divorced over the kid playing hockey. And it might have been level 3 U12, Tim, or U10?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it was small town, low level hockey, that's for sure.
But I got a call from a lawyer at the recommendation of a retired NHL friend to take this case on. Yeah, this was money. I was going to get paid, and so was Tim, to drive up there, do a formal scouting, and submit a report that was to go to the lawyers. And I had the lawyers. One of the lawyers wanted us to go and scout again, and the other one kept sending me things, no, you can't. You've done all you should. But it was a zoo. But that's the reality And it gets back to Tom's human condition. Mom and dad, their relationship was ruined by the ego of what we're talking about. So you're absolutely right. It's a serious problem. I believe there is a solution, but it's important to sort of rekindle the fire of what's going on here. And more importantly than that is, what can you do about it? What can we do about it? Anyway, that's my 2 bits worth. And Dean, there's one guy who's been through it and managed to succeed in doing it the right way, his way, an ethical coach who's just done it all. And that's Rick Puttock. And Rick, I don't know if your speaker's working or not and how much of the conversations you've heard, but I wonder if you could speak to this, Rick, and add some value to the conversation because I know the sports governing body created a good code of conduct, and you were one of the very few, the only one that has managed to take that and deliver on it, which to me means it's too complex because if only one can deliver on it, it's good for you, it worked for you, it hasn't sustained your coaching, but now you're mentoring and being respected because you're dealing with these problems. So, Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you and just go wherever you want on this.
Okay, Wally, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I tuned in a little bit late, so I caught the tail end of the general discussion that was going on, and then listening to Dean's comments just reminded me of when I first started coaching. It was before coaching education or coaching certification was mandated, and I was at one of the first sessions in Calgary with a number of other coaches, probably 30 or 40 of them, that had obviously coached, in my estimation, a lot longer than I did. And one of the observations I had, and just overhearing all the comments, was, why am I here? I've been doing this forever. I know what I'm doing. Why do I need to take this training? And after almost 40 years, or more than 40 years actually, of doing this, if I were to go to a coaching clinic today or in the mentoring I'm doing now, I'm seeing that same reaction. Not much has changed in that era. Everybody who has played the game or is a Canadian seems to feel that they know what the game's all about. I actually had one fellow on the ice that I was mentoring telling me that I was explaining why we were doing something and why I preferred to do it this way. And he said, I don't have to listen to you. I'm going to do it my way. And in my opinion, my observation, that whole attitude is pervasive. It's the rare case where a coach nowadays recognizes that he doesn't know it all and actually seeks help from others and seeks advice and seeks ideas. And maybe that's a little off topic for the idea of the elite stream of hockey, but I think that is part of the problem. As far as the academies, the super leagues, and the like that are going on both in winter season and spring and summer, that is predominantly ego driven by the parents that can afford to do that. They'll pay exorbitant sums of money. One of my boys is a coach, and he's in that environment this season, first time. He's shocked, surprised, not sure what to do with. He's got what's labeled as a AAA team, and he tells me that he's got maybe one qualified AA player in the group, and the rest is just, I can afford to be here. I want to say that my son is playing AAA, and they're actually offering him more money to come back and do it again next year with the same group. To me, that's not the right way to go about it. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Rick. That's I think your son coached with you back in the day, if I recall, like, 'cause I think, weren't you out like in Strathmore with the midgets
Yeah.
for a fair bit there? And is it Derek? Is that your boy?
You got it, Dean.
Yeah, I haven't, I lost track of him. I used to touch base with him every once in a while. Say hello for me, 'cause I haven't seen him in the Coons age. So, but yeah, I appreciate your comments on that, Rick. I'm curious now. You don't have to say it on air where he's coaching. I'll have to try and look him up. Any of you other fellas have any other experiences which you can identify potentially some issues with leadership from governing bodies? Go ahead, guest user raising their hand.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
me.
I don't know the name there. I
Yeah,
just
well,
see
that's
guest
actually
user.
I've changed my name to guest user because it's so much easier.
Witness protection, maybe.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be on here. Wouldn't be on here if it was witness protection. Let me tell you that. For me, I think one of the things that I see is, and I've learned a lot, like working with Mike Benelli with the USA Hockey and the coaching education that we do. But one of the things I always noticed was when we did that education, it didn't matter if you were a squirt coach, let's say, for your local town team, or you were a squirt coach for the highest level AAA program in the state. And they're two different things, right? Once you learn those basics, certainly the atmosphere and environment that we put that town youth coach into is very different from what that AAA coach gets, yet it's the same training. And where is the guidance? To me, that's really where it goes. I think that's the first step, is getting the like Wally's saying, getting those boxes checked. But after that, where does it go from there? Do they have hockey directors? How good are the hockey directors? What are they doing? What's their mission statements? All those other things. I think to some degree, especially those younger coaches who are excited about doing this, and they get that first time job as a AAA, and then they're just bombarded by these parents, and that kind of stuff is never really taught in the process or talked about until you kind of get there.
Al?
I would tail in on that because the USA Hockey Coach Education Program, and you guys are involved in it, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. When they originally started, you start it was associate, intermediate, and advanced, and then masters. But to go to the next level, you couldn't just sign up and write a check. You had to have coached for a while. And to get into the master, or what we now call level 5, you had to be invited in because of the work you've done as a coach. And now it's just, I mean, I bet I could name 30 people who are level 5 master level coaches, USA Hockey, that have never coached a day in their life. But USA Hockey makes $1 million running these programs, and now most of it's online. And I haven't looked at it for a few years, but the level, like maybe level 2, it still has a whole 40 minutes, or did have a whole 40-minute session on the detrimental effects of drinking alcohol on the weekend and how it impacted a whole week's worth of training for 10-year-olds. It's like, so that's
Must be big.
To your point, yes, user. It's not specific to where the coach is going to be coaching, and they just did it. They just blanket everybody with the same thing and call it good to go. And so I ran some programs here in Minnesota for a while in our district on ice with coaches at different levels, because I absolutely 100% believe that the quality of experience that a player gets is directly related to the coach. Now, we have high school hockey in Minnesota, and they have no requirements for training. And their only goal is to win as many games as possible. And therefore, they'll have a bench of 20 and they play 10. And the ironic part about it is parents of the kids on the third and fourth line don't care, as long as their kid's on that varsity hockey team. And if it's a good team and they win, they're all happy. And so, I don't know. There's a lot of issues involved in all of this. So, well, I'll lower my hand now. Well, he's talking to somebody else.
No, I had to go. I really don't know where to go on this because I'm getting a bit of an echo in my sound, so I'm going to shut it off.
Oh, no, that's probably.
Anyway, I'm curious, Tim. You've played at a high level, coached at a high level. You haven't really coached minor hockey that I know of, but you've been involved in mentorship. So I wonder if you could speak to this at all and provide some perspective on it.
Well, you are right, that Wally, that 1 year that you and I coached at the Edge, that was like midget. Well, it was supposed to be midget. Well, it was a midget AAA league, but our team was like a average AA team. It's the year from hell, coaching wise. That's the only experience really I have with coaching minor hockey, aside from mentoring in Alberta Cup last April, which was, again, that's hardly like minor hockey. These are, a lot of them first round junior draft picks and, good kids on their best behavior. But, I mean, I've talked about it before. Like, I think we're back. I think a lot of the issues are, as we've all said, are sort of parent driven. And right now, Hockey Canada is getting beaten over the head for lack of leadership, and they deserve some of that. But really, in my view, it goes back to the parents. I saw a lot of stuff in my day as a player. I didn't take part in it. I attribute that to just having good parents that sort of taught me, hey, this is right, this is wrong. And if you see something that's wrong, ideally you try to speak up, but you just don't take part if you in some of the stuff that goes on. But that's sort of on the behavioral side, and it's just such a big nut to crack. I'm really interested to see what's going to come out of the whole board change at Hockey Canada on the coaching, leadership, training, instruction, specifically, because as we're saying, that's where it all sort of starts, with the individual branches and what they're actually trying to teach their coaches. It's a big nut to crack. And, and sort of to Rick's point on, the young coaches thinking they know what they need to do and know where it's all at. I think that's always been a problem, and it's still a big problem. Those 4 stages of learning as a coach, when you start out, you don't know what you don't know, is where everybody starts. It's a tough one, but I'm not sure I have anything really to add, Wally. I think we talked as well before. Like, I think the Coaching Association of Canada has really good intentions in terms of their education program, but it's just such a hard delivery mechanism to get coaches to take a week off or take a weekend off. And really, is that even enough? Does it even begin to address the problems when they really, it's more technical, tactical based, and really should be ethically based, like Wally's saying, for starters anyway. Like, you shouldn't be able to start coaching unless you take an ethical coaching, decision-making course and understand that, you know, certainly below Bantam AAA, and we can have that discussion again, but it's about fun, enjoyment, and participation, and not about winning. But how is that ever going to change? I don't know how that's ever going to change.
Tim, before I get Hal to chime in, and then Dean, the solution to me is simple. It's in education, and the governing body determines the requirements at every level. And the thing that has never been intended to in a proactive fashion is ethical coaching modules. The art of coaching behavior, accomplishing the things you want from playing a sport. And right now, the only ethical module would be at a level 4 here in Canada, Hal. It's a reactive 8-hour module at the high performance level of dealing with problems. What do you do when somebody has drugs? What do you do when there's a theft? What do you do when there's abusive online behavior? It's not coaching to prevent those kind of behaviors and educating coaches. Somebody used the term, Dean did, top down. Dean, the most important part is bottom up. When that coach gets educated and grows up and walks the talk of doing things the right way, you're going to develop more NHL players than ever before if you want, but with an ethical foundation that they've lost in the process of going up the hockey ladder. So that's sort of my preaching about the solutions that are available that governing bodies can take hold of, because the X's and O's, people are just going to YouTube and they're going to sharing drills and just running drills and trying to win games by shortening the bench, and there's no concept of the art of coaching and dealing with behaviors to build a team to become a champion. Anyway, Dean, I'm going to let you speak, and there's a lot of people with their hands up here off and on. So, and anybody else, make sure you get your hand up to chime in. Thank you.
Hal, did you had your hand up before me, I think, didn't you?
Well, I think everything we're talking about is so great. One of the biggest issues, and we're involved in a pretty serious one right now, but everybody's a volunteer. And most coaches in minor hockey, they're either there, they coach because they played, but they get a fee discount for their kid, and they get to play them all the time. But, you know, and I actually get paid okay for what I'm doing, but, you know, with the issue that we're dealing with, I have no authority. I have no authority to discipline the kids. And now it's gone up to a district level. This is where the attorneys are all now involved. And those people at the district, they're just volunteers. Nobody's getting paid except the attorneys in this case. And then the only people that really make money in hockey, at least in Minnesota, are those that run these off-season programs where there's no oversight, there's no coaching requirements, there's nothing. So it's, you know, it's the money that's driving, money and ego, as we talked before, and the poor youth coaches who are inadequately prepared to coach teams and to deal with parents. Now, I haven't had any parent problems for a long time because I'm actually older than the parents. I'm as old as their parents. And so they don't give me any grief, but you know, they don't, but they think it's okay not to come to practice. It's okay this, and we have codes of conduct, we have all this stuff, and nobody pays any attention to it. And I think it's, you know, it's discouraging, and I think it's too bad. So others want to talk. I gotta go to work here in a minute. So I love this, you guys. Keep at it.
Hal, I'm going to ask Peter to chime in, and I've got one question, Hal. Is there any accountability in your program?
Well, what's going to happen in our program, I believe, I don't know for sure, but we've got one kid suspended for the rest of the season. And then they're going to suspend several of the other players for 1 or 2 games. They're going to suspend the head coach, that's me, even though it occurred when I was out of town. And what the incident occurred while I was out of town. So I wasn't even there. And they telling me the reason they're going to do this is because there's so many lawyers involved, and that now it's USA Hockey is running for cover in this whole thing. This is a B Bantam team. The kids are 13 and 14, and none of them are. I don't think any of them will ever play at the next level at all. They just don't have the skills to do it. And is there any accountability? I don't know. And what they're saying is, even though I was 800 miles away, it comes back to the head coach. And I'm going, really? Where in the rest of the world does that work? And so, we've only got 5 games left. I mean, and the incident occurred in early December. And so I fed it right up to all of the people who should have taken action and didn't. So accountability is coming, and I would say the board of our local association is going to have a significant change in leadership for failure to lead. But, and those are all volunteer positions. So I don't know. So that answers your question.
Thank you. It really does, because accountability is a part of what we want to educate coaches to do. Hold their players accountable for behaviors before they go to court.
Yep.
And prevent them as they grow up the minor hockey ladder. So, Peter.
Well, the parents don't think the kids did anything wrong, but locker boxing is wrong.
Well, this is where.
There you go.
Rick is an expert in this area if he wants to comment later, but Peter, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I think Dean deferred first, Wally.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dean, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Wally. Well, it was just as Tim and then Wally chimed in after Tim. Just kind of going back a little bit here, we were talking about how the coach certification was just ticking the boxes, and even Rick touched on it earlier when he talked about how attitudes seemingly haven't changed for a lot of coaches over the last 40 years. Why am I here? I know what I'm doing. But what Tim and Wally were kind of talking about there led me to ask the question here about the leadership regarding certification. So, I mean, most of you guys, probably all you guys, have mentored at some point. Aside from, like, at least here with our certification program, a lot of it's just attendance based. So you might have to do some online stuff on a course or in person, sit and listen. Maybe you get to go on the ice, and then at that point, okay, good. You've checked the boxes. You've put in your time, so to speak. You're good. We'll grant you a certification. And I think Hal was talking about this at the start with USA Hockey as well, how the structure has changed because it's become a money-making entity for Hockey USA and every governing body. And I think for our HP1 here, again, it used to be coach level, intermediate, advanced 1, advanced 2, and then level 4 and 5. And now it's, the nomenclature's changed probably 3 or 4 times since I started back in the early 80s. But Where's the role of mentorship here? Because aside from at the HP1, here, for Hockey Alberta, Hockey BC, across the country, when you evaluate a coach, I mean, they certainly have to attend and put in time either online and or in person. And at the end, they have to, answer a bunch of questions. They get an exam, they go back and they take it, and it's supposed to be somewhat of an applied exam, like, using it at whatever your specific level is, and you answer questions within that context. And then somebody from a governing body, like at the provincial or national level here, will go out, and it's the same for HP2 as well. And you go out and you watch a couple practices, maybe in a game or two, and it might be one practice, one game, might be two practices, one game. It's probably no more than 4 on-site observations and visits. And at that point, if you've passed your exam and some Yoda guy shows up and waves their magic wand and says you've met these requirements, after that, I think unless you need to achieve another higher level of certification to coach, you're probably not going to see another mentor unless you actively go out and find one on your own, or you happen to work within an association that offers some sort of a mentorship program. But that's not to satisfy a governing body. That's probably considered an add-on. At least that's my perspective on it. So my question is, where does mentorship fall into not just the certification, because I've kind of gone over what little it does have effect during the certification, but I think my own failure or identification of a failure here with leadership is we let these guys go after a tick box, and then what? Some of them I think would like to continue to learn. A lot of them don't care. But where do you guys see the leadership around mentorship? Should it be coming from a national governing body, or is mentorship simply an add-on if you're interested? I'll defer to the group at large here. I think is it Peter? Is that your witness protection name for guest user?
Yes, just call me Peter.
Okay, today. So I don't want to get too into U.S. politics, but you don't happen to be George Santos, do you?
Mm-hmm. I can't say that really.
Okay. Go ahead, Peter.
So here's my question in regards to really whatever we can talk about Canadian-wise, American-wise. What, if any, modules are out there for the parents to better understand the hockey process, define best practices and behaviors, and what their part is and what they can do to support programs? So I guess my question is, and it sort of falls in line, it's at the beginning before mentoring, right? Because if there is a certain expectation and behavior and we know how we're supposed to act, then there's potentially less issues. But is parent education overlooked? And is it overlooked? Why is it overlooked? Just because it's too hard? So that's kind of my question, is what is out there for the parents? Because at the end of the day, when you talk to a coach, the issues that they have, it almost always comes up, what parent, right? This parent said this parent said that. How do I deal with this parent's expectations? How do I deal with this situation? What's out there to give the parents a better idea of what they should actually expect and what the process is?
Well, hell, or Peter, I'll just mention the one thing that I've done as a mentor, being asked to work with U13, so-called elite female hockey coaches. And you all know about the mission statement exercise, and I advocate that the problems we're talking about will be prevented over a period of time. And I'm saying that period of time would be probably 8 to 15 years. But if education begins and this mission statement exercise is uh, created and dealt with in a fashion at every level that suits that level, you wouldn't have these issues. So these two Pee Wee teams I coached with, Tom was having difficulty with his team at the beginning of the year because the parents had coached their kids growing up until they were 13, and now they're an elite team and they can't have a parent coach, although there is a parent coach and 4 assistants on the other team. So they all get along well, and I'm sort of mentoring the other team. My first line with the coach of the other team after watching one game, I questioned his bench management and I said, look, I'm going to tell you, if you are shortening the bench at the end of the game to try to win the game, I'm gone. I'm not going to work with you. I'm about development and ethical coaching. And the first tournament of the season, before the official season starts, and it wasn't happening, but I didn't know. I thought somebody got out there a little bit out of turn, but I brought it up. And he said, no, by no means. My philosophy is to roll them, to develop them. And Tom was having difficulty coaching the other team because he wasn't accepted by the parents who wanted to coach. And he already had competent assistants like Cassie Campbell and his son, who he's coached with for many years. So he didn't need parent coaches, but he was uncomfortable because they didn't look him in the eye. They turned their backs on him. And he told me about it, and I said, let me do the mission statement exercise with the parents. So at a practice where there was a boardroom where Tom was on the ice with his team, I gathered all the parents together and did the exercise. And I went through it in minute detail. It was the best thing I ever did. For the entire practice time, it was about an overall an hour and a half session where they got to talk and get an established, agreed upon perspective of what they were there for. And it took 2 months for them to complete the mission statement, but they did it on a fridge magnet to remind them of what they're there for in terms of how they're going to do things. How are they going to walk the talk that we're talking about? It saved Tom's butt. And the atmosphere is much more civil, positive, enjoyable for everyone. I haven't needed to do the mission statement exercise with the other group, but I'm promoting doing it with the other team because even though the season's almost over, the players are young enough and the parents need to get the perspective that they got from that exercise. And when you do this exercise, I advise the coaches to recruit good parents to get on the boards so that we get the people that are like-minded in terms of ethical coaching and development in place. So that's sort of my background on it, and it's in keeping with everything that Rick Puttick's done that he's been able to do with a code of conduct, which is really a list of rules and consequences holding players accountable and parents accountable to those behaviors. And I feel the exercise complements any code of conduct that you could have. I'm not as worried now about doing it about coaches, with coaches. It still has to be done. They have to understand it and deliver on it and walk the talk as they coach. But I now feel that getting parents early in the year in a room while players are practicing, that mentors could do this exercise with them. It's my role as a mentor in AA and AAA hockey. One role: protect the coaches, to be the buffer from the parents, let them know I was on top of things, was aware of what they were doing. And if I failed to cross the line, I would address it.
But how on a grander scale, not organization wise, like you're talking about doing, which is great. You know, it's awesome, right? But I'm pretty sure you can't get to every organization in Canada and do this. But there is one body that can, just like in the States, there is one body that can reach everybody. How do they do that? Should they do that? I guess
Well,
that's really kind of what I'm asking.
well, I agree with you, but it starts with the coaches doing it.
Sure.
And if you do this at Coach 1, which is half ice hockey, they really don't need the exercise, but they do, because when they go into Coach 2, which is your whole ice hockey, they've done it before. They understand the perspective piece. We're educating them about the ethics of coaching, what's right and what's wrong. We're doing the parenting piece that parents all want to be able to do, but lose track of because of the human condition, as Tom. So coaches can make the difference, given the tools at a young age, and being able to do it with the parent group. There are experienced coaches in every association who would be very good at delivering this session. Every one of you could do this session with a parent group. And if they come out of it with a mission statement, and the coach has done the exercise and is supported because he's thinking the right way, he's held accountable, or she's held accountable as a coach to that mission statement. And I believe it's not like it's an idea for a solution. We've talked about the problems over and over and over again. They're going to keep happening, but it's time to really try to do something concrete about them. And as I mentioned to Hockey Canada's plight, I thought the time was right to implement this in terms of saving face for Hockey Canada to do the right things. This is one of the most right things they could ever do. But it's sort of, you don't understand the value of it. It's the outcome will be paid for 12 years down the road and sooner as you go up the ladder. But that's
Brent here.
okay, Brent.
How are you? Oh,
Welcome back, Brent. It's good to see you. I thought of you last night when the Connor Bedard was on the televised on the Hipman game against the Regina Pats last night, and the camera panned